What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redemption with Jayden. We are back from Nationals 2023, and I gotta tell you, it was a great time. I didn't really expect anything different, but Redemption National tournaments are always a blast. I always have fun being able to catch up with people. We call it a big family reunion, getting back together every year for just some fun and fellowship, enjoying the game that we all love to play. So thank you for everybody who came up to me and introduced themselves that I hadn't met before in person. I wasn't doing as much kind of outreach to new people just because I was trying to focus on the stream, and then also catching up with some of the people that like I said, kind of that I knew and wanted to catch up with. But I really do appreciate those who came up to introduce themselves. If we hadn't met in person before, it was really great to be able to meet some new people. And yeah, it was great catching up with everybody. If you were not there, I hope to see you next year. Come up and say hi. I'll probably be up front somewhere doing streaming stuff behind a computer, and if not, we'll maybe play during a game because I definitely was playing, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. The deck that I used for Type 1 2 player. I also have the decks that I built for both Booster Draft on Thursday and then Sealed deck on Saturday, loaded into Lackey, and I will just briefly show you guys those afterwards and talk about that. But the main focus will be on my Type 1 2 player deck, which, as you can see, I ended up deciding to use the Daniel Nativity deck. I think Danitivity is what I called it before. I like Dantivity. It's a little bit less cheesy, or I feel like it maybe flows a little bit better. I don't know. It's a deck. You can call it whatever you want, but we'll go with Dantivity, I guess. That's what I put in the Lackey deck name there. But anyways, we played 8 rounds of Type 1 2 player on Saturday. I ended up Friday. We played it on Friday. The middle day at Nationals is usually the biggest format. It's Type 1 2 player, and Type A is generally the way things work. And we had 58 players, I believe, and so we played 8 rounds and with no top cut. And I ended up tying for 4th with Luke Marshall. He and I did not play anywhere throughout the tournament. We ended up with the same number of game points and loss hole differential, so we ended up tying just outside of the top 3 mark there. I was a little bit disappointed because if I had I got a timeout win against Zach Gilbot in the final round, which if I had been able to bring that to a full win, then I would have jumped into 3rd place, but it didn't happen. So it's all right. It's it is what it is, and there's always next year. I'm excited to see what more can happen with this Daniel deck. There are definitely a few things that I think could change with it, especially after playing 8 rounds of games with it against very stiff competition. Yeah, let's talk about it. One of the, we'll just kind of go from left to right here. I feel like that's the way to go. One of the differences from the deck that I had posted earlier, the version I had posted earlier, is that I have a Complacent Losel in here now, which definitely should have been in here before. Not sure exactly what the reasoning was for not including it before, but I took out the Galilean's Losel for it. These were specifically, that was one of the changes I made like the night before, kind of when I was deciding, okay, is this for sure the deck that I want to play? And it was something that I was just thinking, like, I'm not really playing that many battle dominance. If anything, I can play the Resurrection during battle. I can play Crowd's Choice during battle to get something that I need to help during the battle, but I could always do that beforehand, or usually I'm getting some kind of acceleration piece, or 3 woes in battle is always handy, but I felt like without running any specifically good battle dominance like Angel of Lord, Christian Martyr, Grapes, Falling Away, Complacent would be a good run, a good combo with, especially with the cross. You're trying to protect your Daniel band as much as possible, and also stopping the battle shenanigans or of attacking that some of the meta offenses do right now, which is abandon a bunch of characters, get a bunch of value, play a dominant like Angel of the Lord or Awesome Things to play Authority of Christ or something like that. And so that was something that I was hoping to answer with Complacent here. It's something that you should, I think, always run if you're running a deck that isn't really running the battle dominance. It just naturally fits in. But I swapped out Galileans, which I think was maybe the wrong way to go. I think Remnant should have been cut out instead, because the reason that Remnant was in there was kind of for the I don't know, combo, just kind of combination of cards, kind of a combo, I guess, of running Remnant, taking their evil characters, discarding them with Great White Throne, because you can use the discard ability at any time. It doesn't have to be during battle. So you can just take their evil character, discard it right away. Then you can use Shield when they use a search ability to underdeck Remnant. And then Remnant is now back in the deck. You can use Gates of Hell to discard it so that you get it out right away. Otherwise, you could just redraw it at some point. But Gates of Hell to discard the bottom card of deck. If it's a Lost Soul, it goes to play instead. That's just a game rule. So it's actually on the old version of Gates of Hell, but not on this one. And so when Remnant comes back into play, you can take another evil character, discard it right away. That was something that I was, just kind of a cheesy play that I was hoping to utilize a little bit more, and it worked here and there. I think I took at least one evil character and was able to take it out with the Great White Throne. But it really didn't pay off as much as I was hoping. I think in the first 4 rounds, at least, and potentially some of the rounds after that, I just remember distinctly the first 4, either I drew my Remnant in the opening 8, or it was played from my deck with an opponent's star ability or something else, like I used Lawless on myself and it came out, or something like that. It was a little bit unfortunate. And if Galileans was in that slot, I think I would have definitely been better off. It would have been a little bit more consistency, because this defense is trying, or I don't think this was in the previous version, but using Accumulator and Choked Seed to get some good acceleration is kind of consequential, highly consequential for the deck, because as we kind of know, that was one of the issues with the Daniel deck, is just not having the right the best acceleration, I guess, and that's what we're trying to compensate for with the Chamber of Angels, Heavenly Host Token, Star of Bethlehem deal. So yeah, let's get into that, talking about the dominance. As I mentioned before, no during battle dominance, or like some of them can be used during battle situationally, but for the most part, they can all be played outside of battles, so we want that advantage of using Complacent. The Resurrection I was never really disappointed with. It was something that I was a little unsure about going into the tournament, but I think it was the right play. You might be wondering why, because there's not a whole lot of New Testament heroes in this deck, but we do have one Empty Tomb hero, which getting out Resurrection Revealer early is always a plus. And we also have a couple of good Gospel Fortresses that are very necessary, I think, for this deck, particularly Chamber of Angels. Being able to save your Angel Band, your Michael, your Captain, your Servants by the River, saving them from an answer that your opponent might have, because the answers that people were playing to a Daniel Band were kind of few and far between. But if they were able to do that, if they were able to do something to them in territory, or even just playing one of their dominants, like Christian Martyr, hitting a Michael could really hinder the offense, really cripple it. And so Chamber of Angels is there for that reason. Bethlehem Stable, very important as well, made some very... It helped a lot, I guess, we'll just put it that way, in the sense of stopping Soul Gen, stopping some a little bit of Thieves stuff. Primarily, I guess, and then slowing down Matthews as well. I think that the Resurrection really came in handy for that, because you can play it on your opponent's turn. There are at least a couple of cases where I think once when my opponent had searched for a Matthew, I was able to play the Resurrection before they attacked to play Bethlehem Stable for my deck. And another situation where I didn't have a Lost Soul, I was able to play the Resurrection before my attack to stop their Bartholomew from playing a Lost Soul from my deck. So it's definitely came in handy there, and I was expecting a lot of people to be playing Shipwreck as kind of a tech for the Chamber of Angels stuff, but also because Herod's Temple is really popular, because Sheol is popular. I was expecting Shipwreck to be going around, and so I wanted to be able to get Chamber of Angels back, because, I mean, really without Chamber of Angels, if they're able to discard that early, then it kind of makes my Star of Bethlehem pretty unimpressive. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Very unimpressive. I could maybe get a draw 2 or maybe 4 if I'm able to get out Heavenly Host and Gabriel, but I don't really have any ways to bounce my heroes or reset them in any way. So yeah, I would not have a whole lot going on with Star of Bethlehem here. Finally, Shipwreck. As I mentioned before, it was important for taking out some of the important fortresses that people are running. I think the primary use case or reason that I was running it in this deck is because the answers to the Daniel band that people would be running, I think, would have been, I mean, for one, the Humble Lost Soul, which there's not really too many ways to deal with that other than underdecking with Sheol. That's maybe kind of one of the bigger ones that people don't think about. You can underdeck your opponent's Lost Souls with Sheol. Take out one of the ones that are annoying. You can try to keep your hand low, which is actually fairly easy for this deck. I've got a lot of characters that I can put down, not too many enhancements. The other one is just rescuing the Humble Lost Soul with Son of God. But then the other answer, or I guess threat I was trying to answer is Golgotha, which I figured would be fairly popular just because Herods and Thieves are the two biggest defenses that I was expecting to see, and that was accurate. I think the majority of my games were either Herods or Thieves, and I think other people played more different versions of them than I saw. Like, I think there were... I'm trying to think of what decks I saw that weren't Herods and Thieves, but a lot of times it was some combination, and Golgotha was used in a lot of those. Turn 1 Shipwreck did get me a rescue against my opponent, I was going second. My opponent played a Golgotha to search for an evil character. I played Shipwreck in the same phase to negate the search for an evil character, and also discard it just because I knew that it was going to be an issue later in the game. I was going to want to do that, and it turned out that was, they didn't have an evil character otherwise, and so I was able to make a rescue on my next turn, get a freebie. So yeah, that's the main reason Shipwreck is in here. It's not quite as necessary with Daniel negating fortresses. Like, there's not quite as many fortresses that I'm really worried about. I also have Captain to negate Sheol. But Golgotha is really the main driver here, and it does help against with the defense as well. There are some fortresses that the defense isn't a fan of, such as Herod's Temple doing tossing shenanigans, which at the right time is more devastating than at others. Like if I'm trying to get initiative, but a lot of these demons are big and beefy, so the tossing doesn't quite come in or get used as often against these guys. But anyways, more on the utility stuff. I've got my own Golgotha just because the CBP is very handy, helps me get set up a little bit, and also holds the cross, which the Daniel offense likes the cross. Stopping your opponent from playing grapes, if they do happen to be running it, is fairly significant. I talked about the fortresses already. Sheol, I mentioned that kind of as well. The Great White Throne has actually a lot of utility right now that I think it could be more popular than it is. So the biggest thing, I guess, with this deck in particular is making sure that my opponent has only one evil character in battle, because if I have a Daniel band with a Servants by the River that cannot be negated due to the Foretelling Angel, then I want there to be a lone evil character in battle to protect my my Daniel humans and lost souls. So that's kind of the main reason, or like uh, the initial reason that it's in the deck, but the kind of sub reasons, I guess, are one, getting the heroes that you need, getting Daniel, Michael, getting them, searching for them earlier, and then also there's a lot of utility with just discarding the evil cards in your territory. I talked about Remnant, that being one. It also got me a block, basically, in one game where my opponent used Falling Away to convert one of my Daniel humans, I think it was Meshach, convert them to an evil character to set up a Choose the Blocker rescue. Before he went into battle, I used the Great White Throne to discard my own Meshach, so that, for one, I had Shield Unity again, and then two, he would have had to choose one of my actual evil characters to block. And then the other thing is with people, with the orange place defense actually, seeing at least a little bit of play. The accumulator, two possessed, these, and Sordid Spirit, people now using those as choose the blocker options. The Great White Throne can discard those before they're able to choose those to block. So with choose the blocker being a popular I don't know, mechanic, I guess, with offenses and being very strong, Great White Throne can do a little bit of interesting tech to limit your opponent's options of choosing the blocker. So, even if I had it active and I had, Prince of this World and the Fallen Star in my territory, and I knew that if my opponent was able to choose the Fallen Star to block, that I wouldn't be able to get the block, then you can use the Great White Throne before they attack to discard the Fallen Star, and limits their option to Prince of this World, or just not choosing the blocker. So I think that there's some cool gameplay that you can do with that. So War in Heaven, just a decent battle. Well, can be a battle winner against non-humans, I guess, but a good negate, which is great for both sides of this deck, so it just fits right in. It is New Testament, so Daniel negates it, unfortunately, but that's a small price to pay. And if you're just going in with Michael, the captain, or something like that, War in Heaven is great if you don't have Daniel in the attack. Oftentimes, I would use it on defense anyway, but there it is. The Daniel crew, I guess, alongside some of the gospel angels that fit right in, is mostly all here. Shadrach is in the reserve, just as another card to be able to top deck with Abednego to set up a CBN Servants by the River through Foretelling Angel. The one card that I think would probably be cut, because I am running it at 51 cards. One of the things I didn't mention with the Lost Souls, but the Daniel deck, I think this was something I kind of noticed at Minnesota State. The Daniel deck lacks Soul Gen. I was running Harvest. I have the Star of Bethlehem to activate the star ability on Lost Child Found. And then there's the Soul Protection on Servants by the River and Abednego. But that wasn't quite enough if my opponent just wasn't drawing a whole lot of cards. Then, the Soul Protection doesn't really do a whole lot. And so Soul Gen is important for that. So I added Hopper as the 51st card. I think if I were to go down to 50, which probably is the right move, and Josh Potratz would certainly say that it was. He was a little bit disappointed I was playing 51. I think Angel of the Winds would probably be the card that I would cut, which it seems a little counterintuitive. You do really want to get to Daniel as early as possible, get him in the battle, in the band, but I did put Daniel's Guardian into the main deck. Previously, Daniel's Guardian was in reserve, so it's another way to get Daniel from the deck, which he's normally who I want to go to. Angel of the Winds, I was just thinking would be nice, because you also want to get Abednego and Meshach out early enough where they're getting protection from with Servants by the River, so you have some protected heroes in battle. Um, and they are both cloud heroes, so if you don't have Daniel to negate evil characters, then Angel of the Winds can do that, fill that gap. But I don't, if I remember correctly, I don't know that I ever actually put Angel of the Winds into battle during the tournament. Like it sounds weird. Maybe there were a couple of times where, like one or two where I had attacked with it on turn one, but that was kind of the only situation in which I did that. And I think a lot of the reason you want to run Angel of the Winds is because it gives you flexibility in which hero you want to go to. A lot of times I just want to go to Daniel, and that's, there are other ways to get to him. Daniel's Prayer can get Daniel's Guardian, Angelic Guidance can get Daniel's Guardian, Great White Throne can get out Daniel. It's a little bit harder to do on turn one because you have to banish an evil card in your discard pile. But I don't know. It could just be a fluke, but Angel of the Winds just felt like it was probably the least used card in the deck. With that said, though, the Sordid Spirit could also be in that what's the word I'm looking for? Could also be in that zone of on the chopping block. That's what I was looking for. Sordid Spirit could also be on the chopping block. It is nice to negate some things in territory. There wasn't a whole lot that like, I feel like the most often thing that you want to target with Sordid Spirit, at least with this defense, what I found in the meta was Good Seed. Sometimes you'll hit a Herod's Temple or something like that, but like really it was just placing on a Good Seed, which I think is maybe good enough to justify keeping Sordid Spirit. But I also ended up with only like a few different Gospel Demons. Like I ended up cutting Evil Spawn, which is a way I had Minnesota State to get to Choked Seed a little bit earlier. You still do want to get Accumulator fairly early. Beelzebub is still good, and Prince is like, the targets for Sordid Spirit are still good enough. Later in the game, he doesn't do quite as much because if you already have the Gospel Demons in deck, which are only 3, so it limits it a little bit. If I search for all of them, then I have to go to Reserve, which I don't necessarily want to do, either of these with Sordid Spirit, unless I'm like banding it in somehow, which this deck doesn't really do, like after the block. So I mean, obviously you could do Beelzebub to ban him in, but banding in with like an enhancement is usually how you want to get Deafening Spirit into battle if you're using it as a character right away. So yeah, anyway, Sordid Spirit could be the other option there. I don't know. That would be something that I would probably try one or the other, test it out a few times, see if I kind of felt like something was missing, like if I had one, wished I had the other, Angel of the Winds or Sordid Spirit. As far as the rest of the heroes go, I think Daniel's Guardian in the main deck was the right way to go. It's another Daniel card, so it's something to grab with Foretelling Angel, which I was actually a little bit surprised at how often I was able to grab cards with Foretelling Angel. It's just, happens to be a Daniel card. You're going to take it. There's a lot of searching, shuffling going on with this deck, so if it's not a Daniel card, you shuffle it up. Hopefully it's a Daniel card. So I think that's nice. Something I don't know if I mentioned last time I was playing this deck in a video, but Foretelling Angel protects deck from discard from all players, so including yourself. So the star ability on Beelzebub, because it's not a cost benefit, you have to do both. If your deck is protected from discard, it says discard top card of deck and a hero. So just of deck means your own deck. If it was of a deck, then it would be a little bit more, like, probably just too powerful, but it's not a cost benefit. It's just a do this and this, because cost benefit, I guess, would have made it too hard to fit in that space with the wording. And so if your deck is protected from Foretelling Angel, you draw a Beelzebub by game rule. You can activate the star ability and just discard a hero without any downside, which is kind of sweet. I like that. Just a fun little interaction if you're ever using a Daniel Demon deck. Anyways, with the enhancements, one of my last minute ads, I think I cut, I want to say an Angel Appears for this. I did have an Angel Appears in here to help get to Heavenly Host earlier. It was something that I was like, I don't know if I necessarily need it. It is kind of nice to play in battle too, because you can ban to an Angel, but oftentimes I'm just going in with a Daniel band and it's going to be negated. And but I've got Angelic Guidance to help get Heavenly Host, and I can just be a little bit patient, which, I don't know, it's it is important to get Heavenly Host early because the big thing with the Daniel deck, at least in the way that I have it implemented here, is that there aren't very many incremental draws. We've got a few with Meshach, Captain of the Host, Messenger, and I mean Foretelling Angel is kind of a draw, but those are going to happen infrequently enough that it's not like it's not going to give you consistent like good like lots of draws, I guess. It's yeah, consistent drawing. I should just say it that way. But it will end up being, or what this deck is trying to do is capitalize on one or two just really big draws. So we've got Star of Bethlehem with the nativity tokens, Heavenly Host tokens, and we have Accumulator with Choked Seed. So Accumulator blocks, you create the, I mean, maybe you already created the tokens, but Accumulator blocks, you place 6 of your Wicked Spirit tokens on the Accumulator. Accumulator decreases itself 6/6, so it's now a 1/1. You have Initiative, you play Choked Seed, which draws from the top and the bottom the number of placed orange cards you have, and so with that you get to draw 12, or to hand limit if you've got 4 or more cards in deck, in hand. So that's the one big swing draw, and then the other is Heavenly Host Star of Bethlehem, which we could also do twice with Coming Prince and Reserve. That was something that I think Coming Prince was in the main deck. I swapped it to Reserve to help make room for other stuff, including Death of Firstborn, because I knew that Herods were going to be a little bit of an issue for the Daniel offense. Herod Agrippa the First can just keep on blocking it. If you don't have a way to negate him, then it's going to be a problem. And so, Faith Unbowed is good because it doesn't interrupt the battle, but it just withdraws the evil characters. So if you withdraw Herod Agrippa the First, great, you get 1 lost soul. The tricky part will be getting the second one. So Death of Firstborn was something that I added to be able to do that. Can be played on any of my heroes, so that's a little, it's a nice aspect to it. It's a little bit more flexible also than Striking Herod. That was another consideration. Striking Herod is New Testament though, so it gets negated by Daniel, so that's not ideal. And so that was the biggest driver for using Death of Firstborn over Striking Herod. The other downside of Death of Firstborn is that it's 4 brigades, so Matthew gets more draws off of it, but that's the price you pay for effective battle winners. Anyways, that is so that was kind of the other way that I had to deal with the Protection Herod. The other, I mean, the last one really would just be Coming Prince to negate it, and hope they didn't have a way to negate the Coming Prince, which often people wouldn't, just because Daniel negates a lot of their enhancements, and Michael tosses the rest of them. So there are a few that get through, but that's why I've got the rest of the negates here with Daniel's Prayer, Expelled from Heaven. I guess Lost Child Found doesn't really interrupt anything in this deck because I don't have any white nativity heroes, and Daniel negates it, so it's pretty much just for playing in territory. Anyways, I guess the other thing to mention is the cross does toss Death of Firstborn, so you have to be a little bit careful about that. Tossing for 1, probably not gonna be do a whole lot of good for you, but who knows? Maybe once in a while. All right, defense. Last thing here, we've got a pretty good amount of evil characters. Messenger of Satan and Terrifying Beast were 2 that I'd swapped in the last or like the night before the tournament, um, because as I had mentioned, I was thinking that Harrods would be part part of an issue for this this offense, and so I wanted ways to make my opponent deal with them, such as with Terrifying Beast banning to them because the Herods are Roman, and also Messenger of Satan banning to them. So that was another part of the tech against Herods, which I think I faced in at least 3 games. Um, Terrifying Beast is also a Daniel card, so he fits right in. Also, everyone playing hand protection and a lot of territory protection being around with Herod's Temple and Bethlehem Stable and Storehouse, then Terrifying Beast can be even more terrifying because my opponent won't have the option to instead if their hand and territory are protected. Um, let's see. That was, yeah, and I guess the other reason for running Terrifying Beast and Messenger is that I was running Rome has destroyed Jerusalem in reserve, which does get tossed by the cross, so you do have to be a little bit careful about that. But I'm running a mostly Old Testament offense where the New Testament heroes are all angels, so they can go into chamber. So I was like, this is another, has potential to be another very swingy card, where if I pull it off at the right time, then it's going to be very powerful. And the two ways to play it would be either on Terrifying Beast or with Messenger banded to my opponent's Herod or Roman of some sort, and then playing Sin and Blasphemy to play an anti-orange enhancement from reserve. So Rome has destroyed Jerusalem falls under that category, and you can play that on your opponent's Roman that you're banning to, or just Terrifying Beast because it's a Roman. So that was kind of the idea with that, but I did not actually play that or Dragon's Wrath in the entire tournament, which was a little bit disappointing. That was really, like, I did play House Divided at least twice, and I think it only resolved once. So that was a little bit, maybe I played it 3 times, I don't know. But that was a little bit of a letdown as far as, like, those were kind of my big tech cards for the like New Testament gospel offenses that I was anticipating a lot of people to be running, and certainly a lot of people were, and it just did not pan out super well, and I don't know exactly why. It could just be that this deck isn't quite fast or consistent enough to make sure I get those blocks out. It could be that the gospel offense is just good enough at like tossing your enhancements or negating things at the right time, and choosing the right evil characters to block to where you're not going to get initiative, and having CBN battle winners. I think like Colosseum would have been great for this deck, this defense. Of course, it would toss Rome has destroyed Jerusalem and Dragon's Wrath, so I'd have to maybe adapt it a little bit for that. It's also would be great for the offense if Daniel didn't negate it, but Michael kind of covers most of the CBN enhancements that you're worried about. Anyways, Sin and Blasphemy, I think every time I played it, I ended up going to Swine Stampede, and that was just like the better option in every circumstance, which feels a little bit bad, but and I don't know if that necessarily means that I would cut Rome has destroyed Jerusalem and or Dragon's Wrath in future versions, but I don't know, something to consider, I suppose. I might just try a whole different defense with this deck, but that was something that I don't know, I was a little bit, or thought was a little bit of a letdown. There were definitely some games where like, oh, if I could just pull off a good RDJ or a Dragon's Wrath at the right time, then I would completely flip this game around. That was like particularly my game against Nick in round 4. I think we both won our first 3 games. We played in round 4, and I think I won my next game, or wait, maybe it was 4 games. Then we played in round 5. I don't know, something like that. But anyways, if I had gotten to either one of my, any of my 3 board wipes, I think that would have been it would have gotten me at least kind of into the game. Maybe you still would have been able to pull out a rescue or two after that, but I was a little bit disappointed I wasn't able to get to any of those, and then that will happen I think with this deck if you just don't get to pull off either of your big swing draws, then you just won't. You're not guaranteed to get the cards that you need to stay in the game. That's with most decks, but in this deck in particular, like I've got two really big draw engines that are a little glassy, I guess. Um, so yeah. Anyways, that is my Type 1 2-player deck, the Dantivity deck, which I had a lot of fun with. It's not really my, I guess hasn't really been my style of deck, but I think that it was a reasonably good meta call. I think it definitely it was like it definitely answered some of the things that people were not necessarily accounting for, or I guess some of the things that people were running on defenses. I didn't actually run into any black gray kind of splash defenses, which I expected to. Those defenses that run pretty much like just all of the black gray evil enhancements, and then probably have mostly black evil characters, but maybe a few gray ones here and there. And I think Michael just runs over that defense pretty handily. Um, like I guess you have to worry about High Priest Ananias, and that's about it. And that didn't really. I didn't see or play against any of those. It was a little bit disappointing that I couldn't get that good matchup, but yeah, I think that it was a good meta call just for all the New Testament defenses going around and Daniel negating New Testament enhancements. So, anyways, the longest, I guess it's not really an intro because this is pretty much the entire video. I'm not going to have any gameplay. If you are wanting to see some gameplay, I did watch a few games or play a few games on stream between my stream and Rob M Studios. So you can check those out for the Friday, July 28th live streams. So you can maybe see a few games with this on there. I might play this on the channel at some point later on, but we've got a new set to play with. So that's probably what's going to happen going forward for the most part, in the near future at least. I also might not do any gameplay videos for at least a few weeks. I do like to take a little bit of a break after nationals, at least from making content, which that'll give me a little bit of time to play around with the new cards, the new set, and have some decks ready for you guys to see once I'm probably in a few weeks, maybe at the beginning of September or something like that. It's kind of when I tend to get rolling again. There might be an Israel's Rebellion box opening video in the meantime, but so anyways, let's do a quick look at my draft and sealed piles that I got here. Let's see if I can maybe just move myself out of the way a little bit here. There we go. So this is what I ended up drafting on Thursday, which I was fairly impressed with. And I ended up with some nice little NT Lost Soul Unity package here. Defiled was pretty decent. I could have. There weren't like too many extensive battles actually going on with this deck, as you can see with when we'll get to the defense. It was kind of either you win or you get the block or you don't. Not too many extensive battles going on. So Defiled didn't get too many triggers, but I mean it's better than a Meek Lost Soul, so that was good. Harvest was really great. Soul Gen both ways. That booster draft doesn't really have a whole lot of answers for. Like people aren't going to be running negate neutrals as consistently, so Harvest will often get there with the Soul Gen. Forsaken, a great Lost Soul to draft. It's definitely not like first pickable, but it's good. Kind of in once you get to the point where it's like, okay, there's nothing in here that is gonna necessarily win me a battle or a character to play some of my good enhancement or my powerful enhancements. And Forsaken is definitely a good one to pick. Can limit your opponent's attacking options, and then also with a character like Ehud, you can choose someone that they're maybe don't have as many enhancements for, like if they drafted a Messenger of Satan just to for flexibility, like the pale green one, the old one that is not cannot be prevented. Then you could, well, I guess you can't choose that with Ehud. If they got a Lot's wife, we'll say Lot's wife. No, she's it's male human. All right, uh, male human that bans that can be prevented. There are some out there. I don't know. This it's hard. Okay. Um, there are some cases where Ehud and Forsaken work together well. All right, we'll leave it at that. I got the Demon Shuffler Lost Soul from Angel Wars as well. I think I shuffled it once using Admiral, the only demon in the deck, and it was not my only Lost Soul at the time, so it wasn't even that effective. But I did it just because I could. I think it was in the last round against Josh, who he was coming in. He had looked at my hand, knew I had no ways to block. I had 4 Lost Souls out, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna shuffle this Lost Soul when he attacked, and at least got his heart to skip a beat or something, or he just was thinking I was doing something that actually mattered that he wasn't aware of on board. Then 3 Meek Lost Souls. Got some decent white heroes here. Ram was kind of nice just to have on the Meek side, especially with Jehoiada Kingmaker, who can protect and ban to Meek 910 Ram and protect him from evil cards. So that's a decent rescuing option. The danger with that is if your opponent has a way to negate Jehoiada, then you're kind of out of luck because I didn't have any teal enhancements to play on him. Also had a Meek John the Baptist, which was kind of nice because he was a prophet, which Simeon the Devout, so he can ban to him. And then Mahairai getting a little banding, crossing between brigades is always good in booster draft, where I've got some white battle winners here, and then I had some blue enhancements to play. So going over and Mahairai to an Ehud and choosing a blocker, something that I would get initiative against, or something like that would be good because I have options of enhancements to play. Name and Servant Girl, Soul Gen, good stuff. TSA was the 51st card that I couldn't figure out what card to cut. If you guys can see this mess of a deck and recommend a card to cut, then by all means do that. But TSA, I just felt like it couldn't be the one, even though I have exactly 1 silver enhancement that he could play. He's still it's the strong angel. It's not as good as the warriors or promo strong angel that negates characters and enhancements, but it's a 12/8, so just big angel numbers. Matthew, of course, is Matthew, so I think I second picked him or something like that. It was passed to me, so and I was already doing a little bit of disciple stuff, so it was definitely an easy decision to take him. I kind of wish I had gotten a good dominant that I could use to reveal for both him and for Thaddeus, because Out of Bethlehem and Boanerges are both decent battle winners. Out of Bethlehem, I suppose, might not be as useful on Matthew because he probably won't have hand disadvantage, I guess, but that still would have been nice to have that option, not to convert him if I had already used my untouchable or something like that. Thaddeus was really great. There was one game in particular where my opponent had a Job's Wife that I just would not have been able to get through otherwise. Job's Wife is a very good card in booster draft. The 0/12 brown negate characters and enhancements except for Job ones. The Strong Angel would have been the only way for me to beat Job's Wife if my opponent didn't have an enhancement to play on her. So Thaddeus was the other option here. I guess Thaddeus and Ehud. Thaddeus, I used it to shuffle Job's Wife so that I could, my opponent wouldn't be able to block with her. And then that same game, the next turn, I attacked again with a different rescue, hoping that Job's Wife was gone. Unfortunately, she my opponent redrew Job's wife and was able to block with her again. So that were the two blocks I think that game. It was a Otherwise I was able to line up my battle winners nicely. James, son of Alpheus from Disciples, bans to Thaddeus, so pretty easy include there. Simeon the Devout, he was kind of nice as far as like getting a little bit of hand control and then also having the flexibility with playing white and green. And had a couple of gold heroes because teaching in parables is amazing, especially in Booster Draft when you get to take out one of their enhancements that lines up with their evil character, especially with a choose the blocker hero, which are also very good in draft. Those are, I don't know, at some point I'll probably have to do another draft video and kind of talk about what kind of cards to prioritize in drafts. But choosing the blocker is always good, and if you can reserve the enhancement that they have for one of their blockers and then choose it to block with EHUD or something like that, then pretty easy inclusion there, and it's also can be a battle winner. And Matthias is another disciple, which, as you can see, I've got a fishing boat, which was actually really great because when my opponent got that second block with Job's wife, the way that I dealt with Job's wife was by underdecking my Thaddeus through fishing boat, and then redrawing him and shuffling my opponent's Job's wife again. That was pretty much the only way I was going to get through. So Matthias, being the fourth disciple in the deck for fishing boat, actually got me quite a few decent draws. And then I've got the blue section here, just some big blue guys. Hezron was actually kind of nice because if he did get into the point of the game where things were just going on, like people were getting enough blocks, which my defense wasn't that sustainable. Like I wasn't going to be removing that many heroes, so that didn't really ever get to that point. But Land Dispute is a good battle winner that Hezron could get back and recycle, which was kind of nice. And there was Shem here, who just big number characters. Those are kind of like okay, so you got your choose the blocker, you got your drawing, you got your banding. None of that's working out, or like you're not seeing any of that in the pack. Just take a big numbered character, preferably in brigades that you have stuff for. I guess I did have Job's Faith. That would be Job's wife. But I don't have any other blue enhancements that would actually remove her, except I guess Land Dispute. So that's one turn. But anyways, so yeah, that would be like Job's Faith plus Shem. Like oftentimes that was good enough. My opponent didn't have a battle winner, and I was just going by the numbers, do a first strike kind of thing. Negate special abilities and evil characters is actually kind of nice on Job's Faith. That came in handy quite a bit against Brian, which so booster draft. I guess I didn't mention before. I ended up going and getting 10th place. I think I won the first 4 games, and then I went to play Brian. I lost 5-0, and then I think I won my next game, and I lost the next 2 games, so that kicked me down to 10th place. But against Brian, who had a crazy good draft, he had a High Priest Annis, who was just keeping souls off the table. He had that first turn block against me. I had Job's Faith to negate that, and that felt pretty good until he played something to win the battle, and then I was disappointed. But anyways, I had pretty much all battle winners for my good enhancements. Like I had Job's Faith and Ehud's Dagger and Resurrection of Martyrs to negate stuff, and the rest of it were battle winners. So that's one of the things that, like, if you're drafting, don't be afraid to just take the battle winners. Hope you get some heroes to line up with them. And I mean, realistically, you should prioritize characters, but if you have good battle winners, those are also good, especially in like a 2-player draft or just a draft where you have a lot of high power packs where you're not doing like too many like foil packs or like old cards, because there are just a lot of decent battle winners out there, and it's going to be less likely that your opponent has a way to negate them. So that's a tip for drafting. Don't just like in Redemption in particular, like with other card games, At least like with with MTG, you can focus on one color and maybe splash another color or something like that as you're doing a draft. With Redemption, you can't really do that because there are so many brigades and you're only going to see so many cards. So you are inevitably going to like the more powerful decks, or I guess more likely decks, are going to be ones that are more likely to win decks, I guess, or at least get 10th place. Are going to be ones that are at least a little bit splashed, and have some powerful battle winners in their brigades. Defense, you can a lot of times get in a single brigade or maybe two, just because you're not going to be running as much of it, and people aren't like prioritizing taking defense as often or as early in most cases. Um, and so, the defensive cards in the brigade that you want you're gonna see them more times going around the table, whereas the offense is less likely to come back around. So, anyways, that would be a tip for drafting. Or you could also just be Brian and have a mono white offense and a mono black defense that he was able to just uh, have the all the right cards for that. That that was just kind of he kept on just playing cards in those brigades during our game, and I was just in awe. It was good, but just to also, you can learn to draft defensively so that if you notice, like, oh, that really good white card was in the pack before, now it's not. Somebody's probably taken white. Maybe it's Brian. I don't know. I'm gonna start defensive drafting. Anyways, this isn't a draft tips video. We'll do that at some point, probably. Defense is pretty much mono brown. I've got a little bit of splash here with the Rabsaurus, and then Necromancer as pale green to play Cursed of God and Forgotten History. Um, Forgotten History and Gibtrick were both pretty nice pulls. Try to end the battle in a stalemate by lining up the numbers correctly. And then Archelaus was just if my opponent was banding, Archelaus would be a good answer to that. He definitely got me at least a couple of blocks. And that's kind of what you need in booster draft, the kind of things you want to look for. Like standalone evil characters are great. Your red dragons, your Emperor Neros, your characters that are or evil characters that are more efficient, Philistine Garrison, and then here our Archelaus can fit in that box as well. And then the rest were just characters like aliens that are soul gen, and then other ones that played the enhancements that I found. Necromancer was also particularly effective. You get a lot of interesting characters in booster draft, and so there are definitely a variety of abilities that you can target with Necromancer. Like say my aliens got discarded, I could use my Necromancer to banish aliens for soul gen. Well, I guess I couldn't do that with Name and Servant Girl since she says capture this hero. That was another reason I wanted to have a good dominant, was because he could banish a Matthew from discard pile to copy his ability. Necromancer does not have a meek identity, so you can't convert it to meek, but you could still reveal a good dominant from hand to draw. Oh, actually, I don't know if it copies the special ability. So does the X get copied there? I'm not sure. That would be a good question, because I do remember I banished someone's Hannah and got a draw off of that. But now I'm wondering if I should have or not, because just copying the ability doesn't copy the identifier. So I'm gonna have to ask about that, and I don't know. Maybe I'll put a little pop-up somewhere over here or something to answer that question. Anyways, evil enhancements were decent, nothing amazing, but battle winners are usually what you want to get, and Brothers Conflict was a nice one to just set up some fun, or some great battles, I guess. Like I was able to use a few of my good battle winners as evil battle winners by setting up a side battle with Brothers Conflict, and you've got cards like Land Dispute and Orpid Departs with just withdraw opposing characters. Also, Boaz's Resolve was a great one to play in a side battle, because I was able to set up the side battle, play Boaz's Resolve, and then a lot of times that would put it in a mutual destruction. So I would just take a good enhancement from my opponent's hand. If they only had one, then they weren't going to have something to play in the side battle. They would just die by mutual destruction. And if they had a white or red hero, I could choose one of theirs and do it that way. Um, so yeah, that was a side battle card. Worked out fairly well. Also untouchable. Just says you may bounce a character, so it doesn't have to be an evil character. So another good side battle shenanigan card there. And then the MVP, my first pick of the draft, was Broken Covenant. Got me to draw a lot of cards. It is a little bit trickier because defense is not like, I mean, this half of the deck was, well, more than half of the deck was good cards, so I didn't always have the defense to discard to it, but, usually if you discard something, you draw into more stuff, so that was pretty good. Pretty much every time I used Broken Covenant, it was drawing at least, it was drawing 3 cards, getting the max value there. There were a few times where I was just getting it for 2, I think maybe even 1 where I got it for 1, but it was just more in a time of desperation, I guess. And then if I was running out of evil cards that like I was willing to discard, I'd just discard random card from a deck. It's more than likely going to be a good card that I've had plenty of or just didn't need. So that was a lot easier to manage with that. All right, sealed deck. We'll do this one a little more quickly because most of it is the starter deck. I had the L deck, which has the priests, the wilderness white heroes, and the Philistines. So the cards that I opened were Bringing Fear, the Winged Leopard, Outpouring, and Aaron. Those are the cards that I opened in my packs and included in my deck. And then the card that I traded for that is included in here is Transfiguration. This was awesome. Moses is in the starter deck, and so being able to take him from deck or discard pile and band him in, or even just search for him like for my own copy and then use Transfiguration to band to my opponent's Moses. I wasn't actually positive that you can do that. I never actually banded to my opponent's Moses. But I believe you can still, or you can do that with the way that this one is worded. The new one just says ban to Moses or Elijah from, I think it's deck, discard pile, or reserve. And so for that one, it's like directly you're banning them into battle. With this one, it's just you search first and then you ban, so you kind of can do as much as you can with both. I would have asked about it if it came up, but I pretty much always just like either my opponent didn't have their Moses down or didn't have it yet or whatever. So I pretty much always just went to my own. I think there was one time where I got him from discard pile, but most of the time I was just getting him out of deck, and it was pretty sweet. Your opponent, if my opponent played something, maybe like a discard card or something to get rid of one of my heroes in battle or something like that, I can play Transfiguration and ban a Moses to negate that battle winner or the removal card, or negate one of their evil characters that are banning or something like that. Outpouring is great, negate and a battle winner, so definitely capitalize on that in a few or in pretty much all of my games. The star ability on Aaron was definitely more useful than the band. The band was good. It was pretty much only something that you want to use if you don't really have anything else, like you're just going for numbers, or maybe I was playing another L deck and wanted to band to my opponent's heroes. Aaron would have been good for that. I did have to be careful with the other Aaron because you can only have one of them in play at the same time. But banding to my own characters was a little bit more risky because Aaron, let's say I banned a Moses, if my opponent has a Taunting the Lord or whatever the K-Deck equivalent is, they just bounce my Moses, I don't have special initiative, and then I'm stuck with Aaron with no enhancements to play on him. So that's something you have to be careful of when you have a banning hero and an off brigade in sealed deck or something like that, or really in any situation. But The star ability was actually really great. I used that a number of times to just get the right hero or enhancement or dominant that I wanted. The Winged Leopard was it's just a generally good card. If you have a big character, especially one with a draw ability, then using it that fits in your brigade, you might as well use it in a limited format environment. So, and then Bringing Fear was probably the best card that I opened. Like Outpouring was maybe close because a negate and a battle winner, or one that can be used as either is good, but a negate that cannot be negated, especially in the starter decks, is very powerful. Um, and then it also it negates all good enhancements. It does negate, or yeah, and it negates all characters, but it does not negate evil enhancements. So really, what I wanted to set up at some point was playing Bringing Fear into Quaking with Fear, in response to like a Pillar of Fire or what's the Lord of Armies? Is that the K deck equivalent? Just to wipe out a bunch of heroes. Pillar of Fire would have been a little more risky because the way that was generally played was banding to your opponent's heroes. But I never ended up getting those two together in response to a big band like that. But that was kind of, Bringing Fear was just a great card through and through during the day. One of the things that I realized during after we had gone through deck building, here's the reserve. The Covenant of Moses and the Goliath's Curse that begin in the reserve in the starter decks, those are great cards to move over into the main deck. You don't have to keep the reserve cards in the reserve, and I did keep 5 of the reserve cards in the reserve. I cut the big meek evil character from the reserve and moved Priest of Dagon over, just because it seemed like the weakest character in the deck, and that's what made room for the Winged Leopard. And then the 4 other cards that I added, I just took 4 cards from the main deck and moved them over to reserve, since the reserve only starts with 6 cards. But the Curse and the Covenant are some of the most flexible cards in the deck. As I kind of mentioned that with over Outpouring, where it's a negate and a battle winner. That makes it flexible and powerful. The same thing goes for the Curse and the Covenant. So I really should have put Slain by Levites in the reserve for Covenant with Moses, because it's just discard an evil card. So having a negate and discard with also the artifact potential, and the negate and discard can be used on any of my heroes except for Aaron, God's Mediator, I guess. That's a much better card right there. And then I think probably Taunting the Lord, or maybe No Blacksmiths in Israel, probably would have been better to cut for Goliath's Curse. So that is something that I realized really, I think, in round 1, where I played my opponent and they had these in the main deck, and I was just like, wait, you can't. Oh yeah, you can't. It's like I should have done that during the deck building. Did not think about it. So something for future sealed deck events that you're playing in with the K and L starter decks. These are great cards to put in the main deck. Honestly, Water from Iraq might be one of the good ones to switch into there as well, just because it's flexible. You can play it on any of your heroes. So yeah, that's some things I learned playing sealed deck with these decks for the first time. I had a lot of fun. Like, playing sealed deck with these decks was a blast. I think there was, like, in every game, there was at least one battle where it was just like, I negate your thing, you negate my thing, abandon all these characters, you abandon all those characters. We're adding up the numbers. Watch the live streams on those. They're a great time had by all, I think. At least by me. I can speak for myself, I suppose. But some really good games and just some fun interactions. Fun to see what people pulled in packs. Unfortunately, I never had to play Brian, and so with that, I ended up getting up to second place in sealed deck. So that was a fun bonus for me, I guess. And one thing I will mention, I guess, with the sealed, like, something that I didn't like quite as much about these decks was that it felt like whoever got their fortress first was just like far ahead, I guess. Like it was easy for whoever got the fortress first to kind of snowball into control of the game, and it just kind of go downhill for the opponent from there, just not being able to catch up. Um, I think that was also somewhat true for Altar Burnt Offering, but it only triggers when your opponent's drawing, so it's like you're you're with Altar, it's more about keeping up. With Wilderness, it's more about getting ahead. Um, and so that is something to note, I guess. If you're playing sealed deck, put some Fortress removal in your deck if you open it in your packs. That could actually make the difference in a game. Or some Fortress searching to get yours out before your opponent, something like that. So that was kind of my one qualm, I guess, with sealed deck, is that it did feel like it was easier for decks to snowball a little bit. But I also felt like in my games, a lot of the times, it was more back and forth, and there was I didn't feel like it ever got too far out of control, at least in my opponent's favor. I don't know. Maybe it was just some of the cards that I had having an extra negate / battle winner and having that on defense as well. Whereas just the cards that I was able to add, kind of helped me to stay in the game a little more. But overall, I would say just keep an eye out for that as you're playing sealed, opening your cards, kind of deciding what to use, and that's, I guess, another reason to have Goliath's Curse in the main deck is that's one of the few cards in the starter deck that can target the Fortress, can get rid of it. So maybe play Goliath's Curse to negate and discard your opponent's Wilderness, or I don't remember what the K-deck equivalent is, but good Fortress. So anyways, that is pretty much all of my Nationals experience there. I did play a few fun games too. I got a couple of Scrolls only games in with Jeremy, which he was the winner of the Iron Man event. It's like side event that was going on, and so I believe that merits him an invite to the Scrolls only Mr. Classic event of the kind of 8-player single elimination tournament that Jay and Jeremy hosted last year, or well, I guess this year in Knoxville, the first annual one, the premier event, and I believe they intend to do that again. And they invited the winner of Type 1 2-player and the winner of Iron Man as two of the 8, and then since I won the event this year, I'll be able to return and defend my title. And Jeremy won both of the games that we played, so I brought the exact version of the deck that I used at Mr. Classic. So I guess I'm gonna have to step up my game a little bit, be ready for what he's got going on there, because I'll be seeing him there. That was pretty much it. Yeah, that was Nationals. Like I said, great time. Really great experience to just be able to catch up with everybody, and doing the live streaming was really great. I'm glad that people were able to participate in that way. Got some great feedback on Discord, so thank you for everyone who was watching, and hopefully that's enough content to hold you over throughout the next few weeks, as won't be doing much gameplay, but I'll be around on Discord and all that. So yeah, that is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.